Tom Holland, the golden boy Hollywood actor, is is harboring a lot of frustration. There's a lot of tension here, and actually potentially even some anger issues. He is overall very positive, doesn't care all that much what other people think. He's a man of few words, and he's highly analytical. Now, everything I've just said, I have extracted from what I've seen in his hands. And in this video, I'm going to be exploring all that I can see in images of his hands. As far as I know, this is the only palm reading online of Tom Holland. And I'm going to be making some predictions about his future. Now, a lot of the things I'm going to mention in this video are probably of no surprise at all, but some things might be. In any case, all that I am going to mention here are entirely from his hands, and I'm going to explain how I've come to those conclusions. Thank you all very much for watching. Please do subscribe, please like, let me know what your thoughts are about my analysis and on, of course, Tom Holland. And if anyone else you have, comes to mind that you would like me to read the hands of. I'm accompanied today by Ava May, who you can see in the corner just over here. She's sleeping quietly. So to start off with, I'm just going to show you what I can see in terms of his personality, his characteristics, his skill set, just from hands and fingers alone. Now, I like this image because it reveals a few things. Firstly, this ring he's wearing here shows us some potential insecurity around his expression of intimacy. Potentially physical, but certainly his deeper seated feelings and his inability to perhaps express those, or what they might reveal in some way. There's some insecurity here, and this is almost a sort of a safety net, a protective, kind of unconscious. Gesture to safeguard that aspect about his psychology. And this is, of course, the Mercury finger. The little finger is the finger of expression and communication. When we wear rings, we are consciously or unconsciously trying to negate or promote that aspect of our psychology. I am quite literally trying to sort of promote my Jupiterian qualities when I wear this finger. I'm trying to increase my ability of, leadership and delegation and decision making, judgment. That is, of course, only because I know a thing or two about palmistry. Now, his fingernails are very spatulate, and what I mean by that is that they quite literally resemble the shape of a kitchen spatula. Spatulacy, if that is even a word, represents action in palmistry. Whenever we see fanning outwards or down below, whenever we see a spatulate shape, it always stands for action, for change, for enthusiasm. People get behind change, people thrive off of change. And so there's a strong sense of action here within his career. Saturn is, of course, the finger of duty, societal contribution, and the way in which he's carving his career, there's certainly a lot of action around that. Now, the finger of his self is a lot more. It's kind of square, but it's sort of rounded off as well. And this is partly why he's got this very optimistic attitude when it comes to himself. And I feel like Keanu Reeves has this as well. He's highly optimistic, and I feel like he's probably this is similar to Keanu Reeves. He can take a joke. He can take it. If someone takes the mick out of him, he will laugh along with it. He'll genuinely find it funny. Now, part of the reason why I said he doesn't really care about what people think of him is because of his Apollo finger. His ring finger here is quite short. Jupiter, Jupiter here and Apollo are pretty leveled off with each other. This is a sign of fame in palmistry. His idea of himself and what he is capable of, his abilities, his talents, are in line with each other. So this means that he's going to achieve to a level that is realistic. He is not an overachiever. He's not trying to do too much, and he's also not an underachiever. So it's someone who's, you know, eh, his thoughts of what he's capable of are in line with his abilities, and it's always a sign of someone who is. Forgive me, Pixie doesn't care about what I would like to do at any one time. This is always a sign of someone who is a high achiever. It's always seen on the hands of very successful people, not necessarily famous people, but it is certainly one of the signs of fame in palmistry. Now, one of the things I have noticed is here. I mean, I'm not surprised here to see a long Mercury finger. Is obviously in acting, you need to be a strong communicator and be able to learn and adapt, soak up information. And obviously has all of those skills. But one of the things I do notice here is that his Saturn finger is very long. And whether or not that's just because Jupiter's short or Apollo is on the short side as well, it still kind of provides, it still has the same effect. And essentially, what this means is that he is prone to low moods, he's aware. He's very aware. And when we are super aware, when we are kind of sensitive and, you know, understanding, awareness leads to a greater predisposition towards depression and low moods, melancholia. Now, I'm not going to lie. I found it really difficult to find clear images of Tom Holland's hands, but I have here his left hand, and you can see here just how capable he is of being open-minded, of being generous, of literally being open. In Indian palmistry, a thumb that is this low, lying this low set, is someone who's had many previous lives. But part of the reason why I say that he has a lot of frustration and even potentially some anger issues here is the shape of his thumb. The thumb itself can reveal our temperament, our attitude, and how we manage our temper. Now here you can see that it is quite sort of balloon shaped here. There's a lot of this creates this a buildup of pressure, of tension, of frustration, and it all comes to a head quite literally. That's what happens here with when it comes to tension, frustration. You can see it a bit more clearly in this image here of his left hand. Now, the left hand reveals our internal world. It is everything that is within. It's also what we've been provided, is what we've inherited, essentially. So what is inherent? And you can see here that, um, again, there's a lot of potentially, a temper here. That's what I'm seeing here. There is something of, at times, a bit of an explosive temper. Now, that's not me just concluding outright. There are a lot of other aspects about the hands here, about his hands in particular, that will kind of leaven these things out. There's no real way to sort of, for the most part anyway, say, well, this means that and that's that. That's not really how palmistry works. It is just one circumstantial kind of clue in the makeup of a person's character and personality. Now, there are, I mentioned earlier he's a man of few words. When we look at his lunar mount here, it's kind of notice how it's kind of enlarged at one point where it kind of sort of, and then it sort of drops off here. The hand shape itself is almost sort of triangular. This is an energetic hand. This is someone who is explorative. It's someone who is kind of prone to burnout, bit of a workaholic. It's someone who thrives off of action and change and pioneering. It's always seen on the hands of explorers, astronauts, um, people who are trying to break records, and that kind of sums up Tom Holland quite well. But notice how lunar here, upper Mars, outer Mars here is absolutely. Um, defined, kind of protruding. It's the part that is most prominent, and this is muscle memory. This is always seen on the hands of dancers, choreographers, stuntmen, people who are into martial arts. And this is no surprise either to see this. This is someone who has great, reflexes and instincts. It's also someone who is highly resilient, someone who's you know outer Mars is the place of strategy and planning. Um, so the longer and straighter the headline, and the further it dips into outer Mars, especially a well-developed one, this is absolutely someone who is very able to strategically, tactically plan ahead. And I do see a fairly long headline here. I mean, it's kind of hard to know just how long it is. It's indicating that it's quite long. Now, the other thing here is that his Jupiter finger in general kind of stands alone. This aspect of his psychology is separate from the rest. I feel like there's there's a very sort of separate. It's hard to put this into words. His idea of himself sits apart from the rest of his psychology. When we take that into consideration with what we see in regards to the large space seen in between the heart and the headline here, this I feel like Tom Holland is very good at compartmentalizing, removing himself from any given situation and judging decision making, because these are things about him that are quite strong, because his Jupiter finger is quite wide, it's quite strong. He's very good at controlling his environment, and making decisions outside of his emotions, if that makes sense. He's very good at, quite literally, at making decisions objectively. The sheer width of his hand shows us that he is very capable. He can handle a lot, and he's very good with people as well. And a lot of what I'm getting here, because these are all circumstantial clues, and when we put them together, we get a picture, we get an idea, and I'm coming to a conclusion about his future. It's probably going to come to no surprise. Look at the fate line. It's rooted in Pluto, and as you know, you may well know if you watched many of my other videos, this is someone who's come back from a previous life with a purpose, as it said in Indian palmistry. This is someone who has unfinished business. He has um, something to say, a message to give, and he has a purpose, a strong purpose. Again, this is his left hand. So this is his feelings about his purpose in life, and it's deeply rooted in his previous life experiences. It almost carves the palm in two. The fate line here appears as though it's a spine of a book, and although it's at an angle, it is massively. It's creating a feeling of destiny within him. He feels like he is predestined. And he feels as though he's predestined for a role of authority. Because again, this is the left hand, this is his internal world. And look at where it is rising. It's rising up onto Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is the place of ambition, judgment, authority, ego, decision making. For me, Tom Holland has an aspiration to direct. And I have no reason not to believe that he will achieve this. He will be a fairly brutal director, though, very capable one, very efficient at handling and managing, and essentially he'll be a great director. He will be firm but fair. The knots seen in his fingers here this is why I say he's analytical. Anyone who has knotty fingers, this slows down the thinking process, and it makes us kind of rethink, double think, double check. It does kind of make us second guess a little bit. It makes him want to go over the details again and again. And this is a great sign, because it not only is it going to obviously make him a better actor because he's really digging deep, but it's also going to make him a great director as well. So that is my main real prediction here, that he is absolutely going to become a director. That might not come as any surprise to anyone. I don't know if he's sort of said that or hinted at that in interviews or whatever, but I do feel very strongly that that is what is going to happen, and those are his thoughts. So, how did I come to the conclusion that his main love language is acts of service? Well, look at his heart line. It is long. It rises up onto Jupiter, and it rises quite high up onto Jupiter. You can see it here as well on his right hand. Not very clearly, but you can see it. You can see it here as well on his left hand. It rises high up onto Jupiter. What does this mean? He's idealistic, and he's not looking for someone to. When it comes to looking for a partner, he's not the sort of person to look for someone to match his status or to even elevate his own status. He's not looking for someone who has a lot of money. These aren't things that interest him. He's looking for love. He's looking for someone that can provide him with satisfaction in romance, finding that spiritual and emotional, psychological connection. It's not about physicality. It's not about materiality. For him, it's all about the psychological and spiritual and emotional connection. He is someone who's quite sort of deep, quite complicated when it comes to his emotional layers. And being idealistic is likely that many people have kind of let him down, or at least he has high expectations. And so it's very easy for him to become disappointed in matters of the heart. And in some ways, when I look at his hand, I'm a little bit surprised that he is where he is in some respects because he is quite insecure. He is quite hesitant. There is something about him that is quite shy and lacking in confidence. And not only that, but his literal physical voice is a little bit quiet. So I find it odd almost that he'd managed um, to get where he is, but then part of that is probably his quite literally his destiny, being that we've already seen that his fate line carves his palm in two, and this is, as I've mentioned, and he feels this way as well, predestined. But a Mercury finger that is a little bit on the thin side is always a sign of someone with quite literally a quiet voice. So it's, yeah, somewhat strange that he's managed to be heard essentially, and it just goes to show that it really is it's a testament to his abilities and to his charm as well. I think it has to be said as well that he is remarkably ambitious. There's a great deal of ambition here, and he's very good at, as I've already mentioned, um, his judgment and making decisions. When I look at his hand, pretty much all fingers lean in towards Apollo here, and Apollo is the finger of um, talents, abilities, creativity. It's our abilities to shine in life, quite literally. Apollo, the sun god. And notice how Apollo here, it is very spatulate. It's always seen on the hands of actors, performers. And this is because he is using his talents uh, in action. He's also got superb timing abilities. Notice how the angle of the thumb here is quite sharp. It's not necessarily pronounced and heavy and, uh, developed, but it is sharp, and that's always seen in those who have exceptional timing abilities, particularly on his right hand here. It's very, he's really developed his timing abilities. He's not actually as private as I thought I would see. I thought I'd see a Mercury finger that really leans quite far away. And actually, just looking at this finger, and although it is not obviously all that clear, Mercury appears to be a little bit wider on his right hand than his left. I probably shouldn't take too much away from this. Um, yeah, I probably shouldn't, but it does sort of appear that way. And if that's the case, he's developed quite literally a louder voice, and that makes perfect sense. He's obviously had some kind of vocal training throughout his career. One thing I do see as quite noteworthy is this lifeline here, and the trajectory of it appears to be, especially on his left hand, it's narrowing off Venus, which I wasn't expecting to see all that much. And it shows that internally he has a feeling that he's got quite a small world of people that he can trust and rely on. He's hesitant to, although he's not all that private, he doesn't want to put himself out there all that much. At the same time, as I've mentioned as well, he doesn't really care what people think. It's not so much about that. I think he's just actually very comfortable in his own company and with the very few people that he gets along with and trusts. Now, as I mentioned, he's highly idealistic, and this heartline does reach right over onto Jupiter. And as well as that, Apollo and Saturn leaning in so um, towards each other like this is always seen on the hands of people who are quite charitable. Wouldn't surprise me if he turns to some sort of endeavors of, charity. So I mentioned at the beginning of this video that he's a man of few words, and that's always seen with people who have this lunar mount that's quite sort of creates a little bit of a shelf before it kind of hangs off and throws itself back in. It's always seen on the hands of, people who are just they could say a lot more. Really, this in conjunction with a low set Mercury finger is absolutely the sign of someone who needs to develop their emotional articulation. And he's absolutely a great communicator, but there is a lacking here, a hesitancy of a willingness of, wanting to kind of explore um, and be emotionally vulnerable. And that's probably why I'm seeing this as well. It's not about what other people think so much. It's not about public opinion anyway. It's more about just having some walls up. The sheer length of the thumb and just how balanced it is, although there is some, um, as I mentioned, frustration, temper here. It's long. And when we have a long and balanced thumb, willpower and logic are kind of even with each other, and it easily reaches up, or probably longer than the third phalanx of Jupiter here. When you hold your thumb against your Jupiter finger here, he's a big achiever. He's able, capable of succeeding, and that's what this is a sign of. It is it's quite sort of tightly kind of pulled in towards the hand, and this is someone who's considering himself, although he is actually a little bit, philanthropic. Although he is quite idealistic, he is charitable. He is also considering himself. He's self-concerned, not selfish. Obviously he has to be, because when he has to consider his how he's coming across, his attitude, what he looks like. This is all part of his role, of course. So there has to be a level of self-centeredness. Now, obviously, it's kind of difficult for me to say all that much when it comes to prediction here about his future. I just don't have great clarity, and I can't provide clarity without clarity. But I will say that here there is some tremendous amount of anger here, and I'm going to say that at 20, this is 24, 24, 25. There's certainly, so 5 years ago, there was, I'd say 4 years ago, a moment here, a decision made out of anger. There was probably a great need to change something about his life in some way, and he made a decision here that was out of drive, out of motivation. And that's what Inner Mars is all about. Anger is the great motivator after all. It's Mars. Um, it's the war god. I will say this though, I do have something of a prediction about the age. In 6 years' time, at least the time of this video, at the age of 35, Tom Holland will, I believe, move. It'll be a big move. Quite literally, he'll relocate. Interestingly, his left hand here shows his thoughts and feelings about this big move, and this looks to be quite a lot sooner. This looks to be more like around the age of 30. So it's possible that he's thinking about this and he wants to move next year. There is literally a move here that he wants to complete. He really wants to make a big change to his life and quite literally live in another country, settle somewhere else, settle abroad. So it might be that although he wants to do this next year, it might be that it won't happen for 5 years later than he wishes to, for whatever reason. Perhaps it's, contracts he needs to fulfill or just, yeah, work, life, other stuff. But that kind of looks likely to me. I would say it's more likely going to happen at 35. What I do find interesting here is this relationship line. I didn't think I was going to be getting into this. And this is obviously left hand, so it says thoughts and feelings about his relationship and how this relationship is impacting his emotional and psychological world. Now, this is a relationship in his mid 20s. From the heart line to the Mercury finger, this entirety is the entirety of his love life. Um, it's the span of the years of his life of which he is kind of romantically active, if you like. And this is, yeah, mid 20s or so, something like this. Really hard to say, but notice how it's flicking upwards like this. And this is always seen on the hands of people who are, well, firstly, this relationship is very positive and it's very emotionally, psychologically, it's improving his emotional and psychological framework. Secondly, it's always seen on the hands of people who are it's all the hallmarks of marriage. It's faithful, it's loving, it's committed, it's happy, it's responsible, it's satisfactory, but without marriage itself, without that legal document. And it shows that strong potential for being averse to marriage and the church and what the church thinks. This person doesn't care about, as I mentioned already, in fact, what other people think. It's not about that. For Tom Holland, he has quite separate ideas of himself and judgment and decision making. When it comes to these decisions, he's a little bit more nonconformist, a little bit more sort of radical. So this kind of tallies up. This makes sense, and I'm corroborating here again. This is all about those circumstantial clues and just pinning them all together. And this again really indicates that when he does become a director, because I'm pretty sure he will, he's going to be a little bit nonconformist, a little bit radical, and he's going to go against the grain a little bit. And that, I feel, is a great sign. Isn't that what all films need? No one wants to be making, you don't want to see the same, film again. You want to see, in cinema, it's all about originality. And I feel, although Tom Holland's films that he's starring in, the franchises, they stand for action, they're fun. It's all about adventure and fantasy. I feel that his films, when he does get around to directing them, are going to be very different. As I've mentioned, he is an energetic hand. It's all about change, all about pioneering, it's all about challenge. He loves a challenge, and he's going to challenge others with his films. Now, I've tried to be quite specific about that prediction, and although it's not a massive surprise to hear that he's probably going to direct films, the types of films that he's going to direct are going to be very different from the films that he's in right now. And that is a fairly specific prediction. I think he's going to create some challenging films. And not just in terms of trying to challenge his audience, but in terms of actually production as well. They're probably going to, he's literally going to purposefully um, take on very difficult and challenging ideas. He's certainly going to challenge his actors as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you all so much for being so patient with me. I'm aware that I've been away for a while. I've been at Glastonbury. This is hence where I got my little flag from. Um, I am just so grateful that everyone has been kind of actually stuck around. I thought I was going to come back to all of my subs gone. Um, but I'm super pleased that you're here. Let me know what your thoughts are on this video. Let me know if you or how much you know about Tom Holland, and if what I've said kind of corroborates with your thoughts and feelings, or even if what he's said in interviews as well. And let me know who you'd like me to read the palms of next Sunday. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.